Hey guys, and welcome back to episode 3. I think it's episode 3. Yeah, we'll go with episode 3 of Uluru Zoo. And today we are doing a sweet build that I have been dying to get out. Unfortunately, I recorded this a long time ago, and then my computer decided that it didn't want to be alive anymore. So I had to troubleshoot that. Eventually found out that the motherboard was just fried. Something internal that I don't understand is over my head. So kind of had to rebuild my computer from, ground up. And now I'm finally getting to a point where I can open After Effects in Premiere without it crashing. So today we are looking at a koala habitat. It's kind of big, I guess, in looking at it in hindsight now. It's a bit big for just the 2 koalas that we end up putting in here, but eventually, hopefully, they'll breed, and we'll have a little collection, a little family of koalas. So the idea behind this particular habitat was to have almost like a jungle-ish within the desert. So I wanted you to be able to really interact with the koala without necessarily being able to like reach your arm out and touch the animal. But I wanted to have this elevated path, and you guys will notice that I'm using the Q trick that I did a video on a few weeks ago about how to make the really thin paths, so anything under 4 meters. So you use the Q path, you lay out the design, and then replace it with the original path, just to kind of trick the game into thinking that you're building a queue even though you're not. So I use this really thin path to be able to give the illusion that this is like a bungalow type walkway, so you can get really up close and personal with the koalas. So I've created the outline so far, and I shot down a couple trees, the new gum trees. I think they are gum or eucalyptus, I forget. I think these 2 are gum trees, but I shoot down. I put down a couple of those just to get the height right, so that I can place the path at the right height, so that when the koalas climb up the tree, they'll be pretty much eye level. Granted, they don't always go up to that highest point in the gum trees, so they may be a little lower, but you get the idea where they're kind of up in the trees, and you can almost reach your arm out and just cuddle one. So I had really a fun time doing this one. It's really unique. I've never seen, and that doesn't mean that someone hasn't done it already, but I have never seen a particular habitat like this where we're really utilizing the new animal animations, particularly the koala being able to climb up the tree and kind of just rest there for long periods of time. You won't see the koala on the ground very often. Although playing, you do notice that they're there, and hopefully they address this in a later fix. They do spend a lot of time on the ground, so it would be nicer to see them really, really utilize the trees, and this will make this habitat 1,000 times better if we can do that. Back to the build. Right now you can see that I'm building on an entrance. So this, I didn't want you to just like walk up in the middle of the desert into this habitat. I wanted it to feel like it was secluded. So you end up having an entrance into Uluru. So I built into the rock, and then created this little back and forth staircase in order to get up to a cliffside, which you then walk out onto this elevated bridge area. And I like it because you can, for fiction's sake, you could say, if you're scared of heights or something, you could stay in that little like cavernous area and not have to go walk out on the bridge. If you were scared of falling through the wooden planks, I really wish there was like a way to get people to walk on just like the planks, because you can do it with the animals in the habitat where you can just literally lay down logs or planks like that and they walk across. I wish you could treat the guests and the keepers as the same way, so you could have them walk across more of a bridge, like a legitimate hanging bridge, instead of the wooden path that we have now, but I think it's fairly effective in what we're trying to do. So just adding some foliage to the entrance to give it a little bit more pizzazz and make it feel like you're walking into a different area scenario, and giving these structure poles, I guess poles, yeah, sure, poles a bit more detail, adding these little posts for them. Posts, that's the freaking word I was looking for. Posts. And then adjusting some of the terrain there to give it a little bit of a nicer feel. So this is where my downfall is, and that is building fencing. Because I know I can use the fencing for the barriers, like the in-game generated barriers. And they're nice. Obviously the glass is the best, use scenario for that. I hate using the chain. There's very rare occasions that I'll use the chain barrier. So I end up having to build custom fences. And to be honest, guys, it's just not my strong suit. But I do like this fence that I came up with, utilizing a lot of the Australian pieces. And then using, I think this is just a gutter pipe there as the railing, that I just recolored to match the rusted pieces from the Australia DLC. And like always, I hate doing rectangular builds, so in terms of habitat. So I've made this kind of wonky, rounded fencing barrier for it. I'm not sure that I love it in terms of how the guests are going to walk around it. I'm still figuring out what the next animal is for this area. I know that we still need to do the oh god, I'm blanking on the name. The dingoes. We still need to do the dingoes and the cassowaries. So I'm thinking the cassowary is going to be next. I have an idea for the habitat for that. It's certainly not as extravagant as this, but I was thinking more of it's not quite, think of an oasis. So like a desert oasis is kind of what I was going to go for the cassowary. They're not really particularly water birds, but I think it would be interesting to kind of have these miniature watering holes for them. But we'll focus on that when we get to there. So I'm just closing up the barrier here, laid down the guest path that, I think best works. And oh my God, this was a pain. I hate working with the internal terrain, that meaning like the pathing, having to build the pathing within a formation. So building into this cave was such a pain in the butt, and you can't do it with the barrier in the way. Like there's always something that's blocking the path from being placed. It's the barrier, it's the terrain's uneven, whatever. And so it's a little finicky, but we get there, and I think the solution's pretty good. I wanted it to feel more realistic, I guess. But don't we always go for realistic? But I wanted it to feel like it was a part of the mountain itself, or the rock rather. So I kind of hide it away between all of these desert rocks, and kind of match in that stucco with the rock color, so it feels a little bit more part of the environment. Because unfortunately with the keepers, they need access from a different point than the guests do, so you have to have that other door. So I just kind of hide that in there, and then placing in a few more of these gum trees and giving them a bit more options. They actually want a lot of climbable area for just 2 koalas, which is like crazy to me, but I guess that makes sense. I mean, they spend most of their time up in the trees, so they would want as many trees as possible. I also think that they can actually climb those posts. I'll have to double check through some of the gameplay footage, but I think you can climb those. But now I'm just adding in some foliage and stuff, and giving them a bit more of a vibrant feel, although true to Australian kind of desert topography, there is not a lot of variation. It's very flat, and there's very little foliage. So I tried to stick with that while still making the habitat interesting to the guests. And here's where I make a huge, I wouldn't say, it's not a mistake. It's a huge endeavor that I was not really thinking out. But I think it turned out pretty great in terms of what I was sort of going for. But I wanted to make a water feature that wasn't overwhelming to the habitat, but gave that habitat a bit of a break, I guess, like, so a definition. I didn't want to just build, like a pool, just a straight up pool. So what I ended up doing is building kind of like this almost dam-like situation for just a very shallow water feature for them, because I hate putting in the pipes, even though probably realistically the pipe would make more sense for an animal in this environment, just because you're talking about a place that has very little water. And so I wanted to meet in the middle, I guess, for this, and I think it works. So we make this little barrier that allows them to have a water source as well as being tucked away, so it's not so dramatic and very man-made, I guess. But just feels a bit more appropriate for the area. And so you can see I get a couple shots of the koalas climbing up there, and they really do enjoy it. And I think this habitat turned out really great, and hopefully you guys enjoy it and get some inspiration out of this. And I would love to see what you guys can do, seeing what we could really do to push this game, because I think there's so much room for opportunity in here. So thank you guys for tuning in, watching this episode. Hopefully we'll have another episode soon-ish. I won't make any promises, but thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.